o'clock.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Row, winding down as we get ready to ramp up for the Super Bowl.
We're so
Thank
happy
you.
to be here.
Good to be
Thanks
here.
for your time today,
Thank
Kayla.
you. Thank you. Thank you. So, Super Bowl's important. I'm not minimizing it, even though this Wisconsin girl couldn't care less who wins.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. But there are some things that do matter. And as we're getting closer and closer and closer, we know that Super Bowl Sunday is the number one day in the United States where children are trafficked. And every year I post when the statistics come out how many children went missing the day of the Super Bowl.
Shocking, isn't it?
It's shocking.
Yeah.
And I can find it, I can Google it, but it's not something that we talk about. I'm not sure why we don't talk about it. I think it's one of the things that we ought to talk about more than
I
anything.
agree.
Kenny, Tina, I'm really grateful that you guys are here. Roy knows for years this is something that just eats me alive. Is the amount of human trafficking that happens in a host city. It's like you almost cross your fingers that it doesn't come to your city because you know how many kids are going to be missing. I live in Milwaukee. We're on the corridor, right? You guys are working very, very hard to address these issues. Will you, first of all, thank you for being here. We'll talk about who you are in just a little bit because that's important. I'm not minimizing that. But Kenny, I think you'd agree that what you're doing now is way more important than playing football.
Amen. Yeah, no question. And God puts his plan together in his own way. And we came into this through a golf tournament a year ago. And
Actually, end of June.
yeah, and from there, it's just kind of snowballing. My wife, as you know, I'm sure, just to go get it. And when they
You know that.
she doesn't know how to do 80, 90%. It's always plus. So she's really been a strong influence and motivation to get this thing rolling and she's done a great job with it. But this is such a tragic situation. Then you think of we all have our own children, and we now have 13 grandchildren. And to think if that happened to one of our children, I wouldn't know how to respond. It's disgusting.
And I think a lot of people, it's not like something you talk about around the dinner table. It's unfortunate because I think that's the problem in the U.S. People think, oh, that's in Colombia or that's in Central America or that's in Mexico or it's, overseas. They don't think it's here. In the U.S., it's about to surpass the drug trade. And when I read all the statistics, I was like, we have to do something. We've been involved in sports for so long, and a lot of our family members are coached and involved and played different sports. And just to see how prevalent it is in the U.S. and people kind of turn a blind eye because people are not comfortable talking about it. And that's what we'd like to change to where it's an open book and people realize it could be next door, it could be a block away, it could be at your church, it could be at your school. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's unfortunate that with the open borders, which is creating a huge problem, and the cartels, and they know they can sell a drug one time, they can sell a young child 10 to 15 times a day, and that's why dollar wise we believe this year it's going to surpass the drug trade in the US. And it's such a heinous act. It's such a horrible situation. Some of these kids have been stolen. Some of these kids have been actually trafficked by their own family members. So it's a whole host of different reasons why it happens. What we want to do is to hit the educational side of it in a very child appropriate way, and then be able to interdict and rescue children and get them back home or into a safe place, and then to help them to rehabilitate so they have hope and they can regain their confidence in themselves and turn their lives around because their lives have been totally disrupted. And then we also want to attack the internet. So all of our 5 charities that all our money goes to affect those pillars that are our mission is to make a difference there. And they're all, we talked to many charities around the country, and we tried to pick the 5. We may rotate some in and out throughout the year because we keep learning about others that maybe we didn't know about before. But our job is to just try to put an end to it and to bring bring it to the forefront and for people to understand whether it's the Olympics, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the Super Bowl, no matter what it is, sports is a haven for this kind of thing. And it's become, we're trying to put a spotlight on it to make a difference.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you and the work that you're doing. Practical tips for moms and dads as they're bringing their kids to places like the NFL experience, and they're here at Mandalay Bay or Caesar's Palace, and they're just walking their kids around having fun, hoping to see a superstar and have a football in their arms to get an autograph. What can moms and dads do to keep their kids just a little bit more safe?
One, be vigilant around where they're at. Don't ever let them get out of your sight, especially in a circumstance like this, because we know as parents, it becomes chaotic at times. And if you've got more than one, especially, then this one could be going this way and this one that way. But you really need to keep a focus on your children. And the crazier it is, the tighter you have to bring them in and keep them close to you. That's the number one thing I'd see.
And I think we did some work and raised some money for John Walsh's foundation. And he told me, Tina, you can't let them out of your sight. You can't go to Target and let them go on the toy section while you're shopping for your groceries. Or if you're at an event like this, don't let them go to Rise to throw the football and take one of the other kids to another section, or don't let them go get a drink by themselves. You really can't. I mean, it can happen just like that. And that's what happened to his son. And we also did a race across America for missing children. And we learned a lot from the Kloss Family Foundation, who has started a lot of things that have made a difference. So Ken and I have been on the outskirts of it for a long, long time, but now we're in the thick of it and want to make a difference. But remember what John told us. Remember what other people who have dealt with it have told us. And we've talked to survivors, and some of them are just walking to school, and they need to go in groups, and they need to not be out on the streets alone. They need to not be left alone. Sometimes people say, well, they're 12, so they're responsible. And maybe they are responsible, but it can happen so quickly. And many times as they lure them through saying, I've got a puppy over here and I lost it. Could you help me look for it at the park, or things like that? They use ruses that kids fall for. And it's understandable because, they love puppies, or they want to help, or, a lot of great kids. And it's a shame that it's not to scare them. And I don't want to scare our children. That's not our goal. Our goal is to just educate them, to be aware, and to realize that if something's not right, who are safe people they can go to. If it's a family member, that's the hardest part, because then who do they tell?
Yeah.
If it's an uncle or an aunt, or unfortunately sometimes their own parents, is that where can they go and where can they get help? So
And I think one of the questions that I always have, you talked about like the younger kids, right? So that seems pretty clear, right? You talked about up to 12, but trafficking, right, crosses a lot of age boundaries. So it's not just kids under 12. When
Right.
you look at that, talk about some of the other ways that this occurs, not just with
Well, a
young
lot of
kids.
it's on the internet, and a lot of
Right.
it's through the gaming. The kids doing gaming and thinking they're playing video games against another 14-year-old or 16-year-old, and many times it's not. It's a 53-year-old,
Right.
gaming with them. So that's where we're working with Thorn. That's really teaching us a lot about how they're stopping that and how they're trying to make a difference. And that's why they're one of our 5 charities, because they hire younger kids that are super adept on the internet and on computers to help them figure it all out, and give the technology to our law enforcement, to our sheriffs and things, to do the interdiction, so they know how to go, where to go. Now they're using AI. One of our charities just used AI recently up in Washington, and it's just so sick when you think about it. Is they used it wasn't a real person, but it sure looked like it. And I think they posed her as a 12-year-old. And this is in a small town in Washington that's not a huge town. It wasn't like Seattle. And in the first 15 minutes, I think there were 32 men trying to buy her. And that's why they're trying. And they're not trying to entrap people, but they're trying to find out, where are these people and
Yeah.
how are they getting them? And many times it's either they're using AI now. the drug trade is coming in, where kids may think, oh, I have a pain, I need to get a pain pill, and then they get hooked up with these people that are part of trafficking.
Yeah.
Or they get them involved in the model shoots and the photo shoots, and we're going to make you famous, and
Yeah.
that's another ruse that's big. But with the boys mostly, and boys are a certain percentage. I don't have it.
I
off the
think
tip of
it's
my
like
tongue.
33%,
They say, but
40%.
we heard something just a few days ago that's higher than that. So that's why I always hate to
Yeah.
say, okay, it's this percentage.
Right.
Let's just say
It's a
boys are trafficked.
big percent.
They're mostly through the gaming part of it, and a ruse to meet them and whatever. And I'm going to teach you how to beat this game and beat that game, and I've got this. I'm going to give you. Can you meet me here at this place, and so forth. And then many times they get them on drugs, and that's how they're trapped. And then sometimes they're never found and never brought home. They may still be alive, but who knows where they're trafficking them? If they're in the U.S. or they take them overseas.
We saw the impact of just finding one young man when we did do that race. It was Kyron Horman is who we represented. He was a young boy that had been taken and still to this day haven't found him. But
they have no clue.
We went from we started here in Las Vegas,
Arizona,
actually, and then we went all the way to Galena, Illinois, and everywhere we went, when we stopped, we would pass out flyers to missing children. And on one particular stop, we were all having dinner that evening, and they came in and announced because someone had recognized someone off that poster, they'd recovered one young boy.
Well, because what they do is they fingerprint children. They say in small towns is where they go and hide, where they can't be found as much, and so that's why they had us stop in all these small towns and put flyers up at lunchtime and then at dinner, and then they do fingerprinting of kids in the area for free, and then they talk about the ones that they think could be in that area. So the sheriffs were all there and all the police. One of the sheriffs left our meeting and saw a van that matched the description and pulled it over, and the little boy was in the back of the van.
But the entire room was crying.
We were all crying.
Everybody was just bawling.
It's only one child.
And that was just one.
It's the awareness. It's the bringing it out to the forefront and letting them know that he could be being trafficked, and he was. And it's something that people don't, it's hard for us to talk about it. It's new to us, like I said, just since June. And it's still hard, and people say we got an award recently. Whether it was deserving, I don't know, but we did. And people said, Tina, you look like you were going to cry up there when you got it, and I did, because it's so hard. It's so deeply devastating to us as parents and grandparents to think of those kids just being in Vegas right now. And I told you, being in my hotel room at night, thinking how many kids are trapped somewhere, being trafficked, or they're in the back of a van, or they're on the street, or they're in a hotel room. It's so hard for me. It's become a part of us that we're going to do whatever it takes to make a huge dent in it and to try to stop it any way we can.
And when you look at that, right, we talk about an event like the Super Bowl. We're sitting here live on Radio Row, one of the top trafficking events of the year. You just walk through the lobby, bringing in one of our other guests, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people walking around, hundreds of kids walking around. What are the signs that just an average person like us could recognize as we're walking down the hallway to be able to tell if that's going on?
That's a good question, and it's not a exact answer for that. There's many different scenarios, but as you're looking and you see something that doesn't look right, for instance, I used to just walk down the lobby and not think about anything. But now as we walk, we're kind of scanning to see if something doesn't meet the eye that should be there. And then, if that's the case, take a few seconds just to observe, maybe follow whatever you think is necessary to make sure that's not a child that's in danger, because it's worth it.
Case of the child. And I think one of the things that I notice, and what some of the things that I've seen and read and heard about, is that feel that it's an inappropriate age gap between someone who says it's a father and it's their child, and it looks more like someone who's too old to have a child that age, and they look like they're in their grasp and they're not letting go, that you have to speak up, you have to say something to someone. I know we flew on a flight to Panama a couple of years ago, and this older couple had a baby, but they didn't know where the diapers were in the bag. The baby was screaming, and he calls me the baby whisperer. So if there's a baby screaming on a plane, I want to help you along, right? So I went over. They didn't know where the formula was. They didn't know where the pacifier was. The baby's, diaper was full. I took it to the back. I got it to quit crying, fed it. But they never once came to check on it. And I'm a stranger. I know I'm not going to parachute off the plane, but still, wouldn't you go back and check on your child? So I told the flight attendant, I said, you have more power than I do because we're going into a foreign country that I have no jurisdiction. I said, I think you need to say something because they're going to have to go through customs and they need to prove that that child should be with them because it was a very weird situation. And I never was able to follow up or find out what happened. She did go talk to the authorities before they went through because I think if you don't say something or you don't bring awareness, nothing's ever going to happen. And if the child is stuck somewhere, you just have to look for signs. You can tell when a child is distressed or uncomfortable, and I know parents get mad at their kids, and their kids might be mad at their parents, and there's situations like that. And we don't ever advocate, breaking in yourself and doing it, but get someone, whether it's a security guard, whether it's, find someone who you feel you can trust that could help you. Say, really need to stop. Or another thing that we were taught is say to go up and ask the child, start asking them questions. Why are you here? Like engage them, because sometimes if they feel someone cares and someone can help them, they may try to break free. And if the adult gets uncomfortable, it might be a way to break the child away. But you still have to be careful because
as grandma says, it's better to be safe than sorry, right?
Yeah. And I think sometimes the kids just want to have someone care about them or be concerned about what's the situation they're in because they've been so brainwashed. You can't talk to anyone. You can't go anywhere. Elizabeth Smart, I met her at a coaches convention and she told me her story. You remember Elizabeth Smart? And her story was so devastating to me because she was out in public many times, but they had so frightened her and so brainwashed her that she didn't feel she could ever get away. And then finally, after quite a bit of time, she was in a position where she could break free and go tell someone and get help. But to hear her story when she was in kind of captivity, but still they were taking her places, she said, you're like frozen with fear. And you don't know who to reach out to, and you don't know who you can trust because you've been so isolated.
And they're telling them that they're going to kill their family.
Right.
If you speak up, your family's dead. And of course, when you're a young person, it's very strongly in the home.
I think what we're talking about is so deep and it's so important. I want to say, thank you for your time. I know we didn't even talk about your professional careers, your accolades. I'm not sure that I think any of that can possibly be more important than the work you're doing. But if each of you would like to give just a 30-second bio of who you really are, maybe it's better that we do it after the fact so people hear the message and then put a name to the face instead of, oh, look at that so-and-so, and they miss the message. Let's always put the message first. Ken, you want to just give a 30-second bio of who you really are?
Yeah, I'm a small town kid from Omak, Washington. I went to Washington State, played cornerback. I was drafted by the Cardinals in the first round back in 1978. I played 7 years, played 5 for them and 2 for the San Diego Chargers, and was a home builder in the off season. So continued that first part of my after career of football. And then I just had a real strong, I had volunteered at a high school to help coach and got the hook. So I ended up going back and I coached college football for another 12 or 13 years, something like that. And we've been on the Amazing Race. We've been, we've been really blessed to do a lot of really cool things. So yeah, we just feel.
So this is one of the really cool things.
This is one of the real cool things. Yeah, and this is the most important. This is where we can make an impact and a difference.
Tina, how about you? I know you have just as many accolades.
She's got a lot more than me. Trust me. We're on 30 seconds. Well covered.
I was going to say, I'm going to be honest. I'm saving the best for last.
I mean, my biggest passion in life has always been giving back and doing philanthropy work. And I mean, working with charities, and I get more joy out of that than I do in closing any big deal. Or I was the youngest director at the $10 billion company in charge of strategic planning for Europe and the US. I was blessed with a good brain, when family who's all very entrepreneurial and always wanted to start my own company. I've started a few.
Children's Cancer Center.
And I've been on the Children's Cancer Center board for, I guess, 20 years, worked with 12 hospitals. I started the Polo Classic 13 years ago with 6 other professionals, and all that money goes to charities. And just trying to find new ways to give back and to have let them have fun, but to have them give back to charities that are worthy. And there was no polo tournaments in the Tampa area. I said, I'm tired of golf. We used to do the Carrabba's tournament. I've done so many charities. I mean, fashion shows and lunches and whatever. We came up with this polo concept where people could more integrate, where you're not stuck at a table the whole night. You can walk around and you can try different foods from different
You can
restaurants.
tell
There's
she's not very good at math. 30
a-
seconds.
a real polo match. But anyway, my greatest contribution has been through charity work and through our 4 kids and our 13 grandkids. I mean, God first, our marriage second, and then our kids, and giving back to others and making a difference in people's lives. That's what I live for.
I love that. I think it aligns so much with our values, and that's to connect athletes, influencers, and celebrities with athletes, influencers, celebrities. Kenny, I'm pointing at you. With business leaders, Tina, I'm looking at you, and nonprofit executives, I'm looking at you, right? And when we put and the 4 of us know, when we put the business leaders and the athletes and celebrities and the nonprofits in a room, and we get them to collaborate
Amen.
and move into a collaborative mindset instead of competing, when we work together to create social impact, the
Make a
community
difference.
wins,
Yeah.
right?
Amen.
That's what it's all about, putting money, resources, and name, image, and likeness together for good.
That sounds like college football
Absolutely.
statement there.
I'm going to coach. Look at Wisconsin. That's right there.
Oh,
Kenny, Tina, the work you're doing is so important. I know that you are on the forefront of building strong, healthy, inclusive communities throughout the country, not just here in Vegas,
Right.
but in everywhere you go. Pray
Everywhere.
that God blesses your footsteps and grows your vision
Thank
and brings
you.
you multitudes of people to help you. My name
amen.
is Kayla here with Roy, reminding everyone to live generously. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate it. God bless.
Time at the end of a long day.